What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Queen's Lounge podcast. I am your homegirl, Shay. And of course, I have another dope interviewer with me on today. I'm super
Yay.
excited about this young lady. She was doing really big things. Without further ado, I'm going to bring her in so she can introduce herself and let you all know who she is. Ma'am, please let the people know who you are.
Yes. Okay, good. Well, good morning, afternoon, everyone. My name is Tae'Lor Landa. I am a school counselor by day, but by night, I am the host of the Grief Journal, the unwritten pages of my grief journey.
Yay!
Yeah. Yes. So it is a podcast on grief that is on multiple listening platforms as of lately. So yes, also a proud member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. I feel like I can't hop on anybody's thing and not say that. Uh,
Absolutely.
but yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. I am super excited to have Miss Tae'Lor on the show today. We're going to deep dive into grief. We know that there are multiple ways and different ways that people grieve, and there's some healthy ways, some unhealthy ways that people grieve. They grieve for multiple reasons. They grieve over different things. So we're going to get into how the grief journal first started. So introduce us into that.
Sure. So my mother was a 51-year-old woman. She had passed away on October 9th, 2019 of a stroke.
Oh wow.
So yes, and I am her only daughter.
Wow.
So naturally, I had to take it all the way back to March of 2019. I
Mhm.
had been living on my own for 3 months, and my mother, she had been having some health issues towards that time, but like in our family, we just bounced back. So my grandmother had
Mhm.
been in and out of the hospital. Like she would bounce out. My mother had been in the hospital before she bounced back. So I thought nothing of it until one
Uh-huh.
day she was saying that her sight got blurry. She was a mail carrier and her sight got blurry.
Wow.
And so yes, and so she had to stop working for that time. And so I spent that summer before she had passed away taking her back and forth to the hospital to get an eye corrective surgery done. So that way she could go back to work
Mhm.
because it was like a struggle to get her on disability so that way she could stop working and take care of her health. But that wasn't
Yeah.
it just wasn't working for her. Her pressure was too high.
Wow.
And simultaneously, my grandmother was having some oxygen issues. So she was in the hospital during that summer as
Mhm.
well. She eventually had to get a trach in her throat. But like I said, she's
Wow.
a comeback queen. Like she came back and the doctor said that she would never speak again. I walked into her room and like she was speaking just fine. Comeback,
Yeah.
yes, comeback. And so once September 2019 hit, both of them went into the hospital at the same time. My
Oh
grandmother
wow.
had oxygen, and then my mom, she had just had an eye surgery, but I think a couple of days before
Mhm.
she had her stroke, but didn't go to the doctor because she wanted to get her surgery done. The only reason
Yeah.
why I say I think is because I'm not the one that took her to her surgery.
Gotcha.
It was my cousin, and so I got the phone call from my cousin, and she said, "Hey, your mom, we're going to take your mom to the ER. She can't like get out of the car," and I could hear her speech slurring, but I thought it was because of the fact that she just got out of surgery. She's coming out of the medicine.
Uh-huh.
But what it really was, I found out a couple days later, like she did in fact have her stroke, and it just took over her body. She was doing well for a couple of days, but something that happened, I'm not sure what it was, but the stroke impacted the part of the brain where it tells you to breathe. Essentially, she just kept getting paralyzed all the way
Oh
down.
wow.
She had what's called locked in syndrome. So she was locked into her body.
Mhm.
The doctors were like, okay, because she had been put on a ventilator and whatnot. Um, and so the doctors were saying, you have to make a choice. Either we put her on this trach, or you just take her off the breathing tube to let her nature take this course.
Uh-huh.
I'm a woman of God, and I believe
Yeah.
miracles. So I was like, okay, we'll just. Well, first I asked her what she wanted to do because it is her body.
Right.
At this point, I was tube down her throat. She can't speak on her own. She can only communicate by blinking. And I was like, okay, do you want us to stop everything? And she blinked yes. And I was just like, oh my gosh. My heart was like, are you sure? But like I said, like, okay, we're about to see a miracle. So on October 9th at 4:30, no, at 4 o'clock, we had them take the breathing tube out, but she was gone 45 minutes later.
Wow.
So yes, and so I was juggling my mother and my grandmother
Mm-hmm.
in both of their illnesses. So obviously, I had to go and tell my grandmother that my mother had passed away. Didn't want to do that. I was handling both of their affairs simultaneously, and then my grandmother, we had, what was the plan that we wanted to do? The goal was to take the money that my mother had from her life insurance and to put my grandmother to a really quality nursing home, because I do believe that while my mother had the health issues, I think part of the reason why she had her stroke was because she was stressed out. Like my grandmother wasn't able to walk after a knee surgery gone bad.
Wow.
And so she hadn't walked in about 6 years at that time.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, I can't take care of her on myself. So
Mm-hmm.
now let me get you into a quality nursing home. But then she went into the hospital. She left the hospital, went into a nursing home, but then kept going back and forth to the hospital. I'm just like, well, can you just hold on? Like, I'm trying to get you, like, I'm trying to get you into a quality place. And she was just like, don't worry about me. And then sometime in October, they said they were about to put her in hospice. And then she went to hospice. It was March 13th, Friday the 13th, 2020.
Wow.
I went to go and see her that morning, and I was like, well, hey, she was just like in and out of it. I thought she was just like sleeping. She still opened her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But that night, it was at 7 p.m. that night that I found out that she too passed away. And I was like,
Wow.
and mind you, this was during COVID.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So COVID had just hit, like she had passed away, and then 2 weeks later, the city had shut down.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, we didn't even get to have a proper funeral for her. We had a viewing for her and everything, but still not a proper funeral had I done for my
Mm-hmm.
mother. And so a year later, I had finished my master's degree, and
Oh, congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. And so I had went on a trip to Disney, and my cousin, she had said, hey, let's do a podcast about our definition of good hair. And I was like, okay. So we did that, and then we went on to do another episode of like what True Confessions, I'm Too Spiritual, talking about what it's like to be spiritual women in a world
Mm-hmm.
that's secular. And I was driving one
Yeah.
day, and I was just like, maybe I need to do a podcast about grief, because time and time again people are just like, oh, you must be feeling XYZ after losing your mom. So they thought I was either suffering or
Uh-huh.
doing really well based on what I was posting on social media. And I'm like, I'm tired of getting misunderstood, so I decided to create
Right.
a podcast. So that was a long-winded answer, but I think I needed to
No, that was
say,
perfect
yeah,
because I
the
don't
journey.
think I didn't know the backstory. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that you broke it down that way so I can have a better understanding
Yes.
of the podcast and what the grief journal stands for and what it's all about. So that's awesome. So how have you handled your grief? Because that's kind of close time that your
Mm-hmm.
mom and your grandmother passed. That's not too far of a distance between the 2.
Mm-hmm. So it's always an interesting question. I feel like that's my favorite question to answer, because there's really no correct way to do it. I feel like if I were to summarize what my grief journey was, I think it would be that I was very intentional about
Mm-hmm.
it. I see people posting on social media all the time, like, "Oh my gosh, I miss my loved ones so much," and I just don't
Yeah, I
talk
see
to me
that a
for the
lot.
rest of it. Yeah, I see that a lot, and so obviously they're just expressing themselves. But I think for me, I just make it a point to not be sad about it. Yeah, I have my days. I have my days where I just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry, because those were my people, those are my
Yeah,
caregivers.
yeah.
So, but I'm always just like, well, no, let me go ahead. I'm gonna treat myself. It's a form of self-care for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, this terrible thing happened to me. How can I take care of myself? So it's all about the mindset. Like, how can I be intentional and make sure that I am doing my best to take care of me and doing things that I enjoy? Maybe
Yeah.
that's shopping 5 times a day. I don't know. I'm working on that. Maybe
You're not the only one. I have that habit bad.
Yes. Oh, it was bad. Ooh, like when it first happened, ooh, the habit was bad. I was in there just,
Yep,
oh my
yep.
God. But I felt good. Like maybe that's going to get my hair done, getting the facial, nails,
Uh-huh.
tracking, whatever. Whatever it is, I'm just doing whatever makes me feel good. But other people just grieve differently. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. There's no right or wrong way to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing this podcast, I learned people know about the 7 stages or 9 stages, however many stages of grief. And
Uh-huh.
then in further research, I have learned that it might be better to go away from that because those stages are circular. So that means that the process is continuous, but people are saying that there might be
Gotcha.
something that's more linear. And so
Uh-huh.
you have a thing that's called what the Greek, I'm trying to pull my book out. Hold on, because I wrote
Yes, go ahead and put that in there. Put that plug in there.
like there are two, it's called grief styles, not so much stages. And so what they are essentially is like two different forms of griever. If you are an intuitive griever, so like you're one that outwardly expresses it,
Mm-hmm.
so you're more like the people that tend to talk about your loved one to
Yeah.
or post it on Facebook and things like that. But you are um it's more public for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And instrumental, they more so internalize their things, so they don't talk about it as much. So they pick up hobbies and things like that. So they might be
Gotcha.
gardeners or like house builders or things like that. So it's either like being outwardly expressing it where you're talking about it, or instrumental where you are internalizing it, but you're doing more. So I don't
Uh-huh.
know anybody that takes up random tasks after they just lost someone. Like that's essentially what they're doing. So
My side of the family, grief seems to be outward. They
yeah.
tend to express it
Mhm.
socially, outwardly,
Mhm.
verbally. We
Mhm.
don't really tend to internalize a lot when we
Yeah.
lose someone. We really
Mhm.
show, the impact that it's having on our lives. So I wish that we can get more into the grieving for the moment, letting
Mhm.
it pass type of thing, and then moving on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish that we can do that, but my family is not like that. One
Yeah.
question I do want to ask is, being a young woman who
Mhm.
lost her mom,
Mhm.
um, 2 years ago,
Mhm.
being in the prime of her life where things are at a heightened standard. You're in school, you're getting ready to graduate, and
Mhm.
really big things are happening in your life, and not being able to have your mom share those moments with you. I know that had to impact you. So
Mhm.
how did you get past that? Because I know a lot of young ladies who has lost their mom at a younger age, and
Mhm.
they didn't get to witness a lot
All
of things
things.
with their mom. And so they're still in that 14-year-old's place, or in that 15-year-old place where their mom is no longer here and can't seem to get past it. So what
Yeah.
advice would you give them to get past that grieving period?
Oh, that's a good question. And someone literally asked me the same thing. So I'll just share like a little like my tidbit. It's like you said, I was in with the problem in my life because I was a year away from getting my master's.
Yeah.
And honestly, I hadn't even had my apartment for a year. I was looking forward to hosting my first holiday
Uh-huh.
and then like
That
mom,
happened.
yeah, the
Yeah.
mom she do stout. So like she's like, well, it's time to go.
Time to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was honestly when I think about my graduation, it was honestly a lot of prayer because I had graduated on my 27th birthday.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, Lord, just allow me to have a good day. I want to feel minimal sadness on this
Mm-hmm.
day. I want to have a good day. And it was a beautiful day. It started off raining that day, but it was beautiful. I enjoyed myself. I was surrounded with a lot of family and friends. So I think I would tell those that are younger women that are grieving the loss of their mother, like I said, just really just be intentional and then just walk in the footsteps of your mother,
Yeah.
for who you are. My mother, she had two master's degrees. We almost actually got ours on the same day.
Wow. I know that's
Yes,
right. Come on,
yes.
moms.
Come on, yes, yes. Good legacy. So just knowing, really just being intentional on, like I said, having a good day, but then also being intentional, having a good life, walking into the legacy that your mother has left for you would be the best
Mm-hmm.
advice that I've gave. Whether that be just, what, my mother did XYZ, she owned a business. Not saying that she did, but like if your mother owned a business and you always
Yeah.
thought about owning that business, kind of walking into that and following in her footsteps. So while she's not here for those big moments, it's almost as if she is she's with you. I don't want to say
Mm-hmm.
reincarnated, but like she's within you while you're doing
Yeah.
big things that you wanted to do that on the path that she has set before you. If that kind of makes sense.
That's awesome. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the podcast is something that you do have to
Mm-hmm.
express verbally about
Mm-hmm.
grief, but you didn't stop there.
No.
You have a notebook,
Right.
and you have a book of tools that helps people
Yes.
along their journey. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yes. Okay. So we did the podcast, we brought out merch, we brought shirts and things like that. And so somebody kept, I think I heard it from at least 2 or 3 people. You should just have a grief journal. And I'm just like, yeah, but then I
A
was just
good
like, that's a little
idea.
cliche because it's called the grief journal, but whatever, I just went with it. And so I Googled the grief journal, and lo and behold, somebody took like the name, and I'm like,
Oh man.
sad. Sad, like how dare, it's always in that moments where you're just like, how dare they be more creative
I
and steal my
know.
idea,
Like they
even
knew that
though
was my idea.
right, like before I even LLC did, how dare you? You know I was coming.
Exactly.
But I took that opportunity to kind of look through the pages and see what was in there. And what I found was that the pages that started off with a prompt and the person just wrote whatever, which is cool. But I felt like I needed to play off of my episodes a little bit more. So I ended up writing Not Your Average Grief Journal. There's actually 2 of them because it's a book and a workbook. They look the exact same because everybody else's book and workbooks look the exact same.
Exactly. So it's only right.
It's only right, yes.
Yes.
And so what the book does, it kind of takes you through my episodes in a sense, because how I structured my episodes, kind of like a grief therapy session. I will start off with a story related to the topic, and then I will go into the topic and then talk about my experiences and then end up with some tips and tricks. And so the book just tells you the tips and the tricks for that particular topic. I talk about grief therapy. I talk about getting life insurance plans. I talk about dating while grieving. I talk about going on FMLA. Not many people know this, but you actually can get FMLA based on depression and anxiety.
Oh
And so,
wow.
yeah. And so that's what I had did after I lost my mother. I was gone for like 3 weeks in December
Wow.
based on the depression and anxiety that I had been diagnosed with. And so we talk about different types of things, and then it gives people a space to write down their thoughts, practice any kind of challenges that I had in the book. There's also pages to free write in there as well. In the workbook. So you buy both because they work together. You can do one without the other, but I think it's much more powerful, obviously, if you do both.
Yeah. So where can they be purchased?
So you can purchase them on Amazon. The caveat is that they're 2 different links because of the fact that the books are so small, like the number of pages are small and there's not much on them. Low content books, they wouldn't let me post them together as one. Otherwise, it would just be a single book, shawty, like single link. Yeah, but we're not. So they're 2 different links. So you can get them on Amazon. We'd be happy to drop the link on the live.
Absolutely.
Links so that way people can purchase them. They're great gifts for Father's Day. You get that express shipping, or any type of day, whenever you're feeling heavy and you need to process your grief, in the verbal and a written sense.
That's awesome. I always felt like writing was very therapeutic. Some people have a hard time expressing or don't know what words to say or what words to use to express the way that they feel inwardly. Writing down, I felt was always therapeutic for me. Make my hand hurt because I had a lot to say. But at the same time, after I was able to write down whatever it was that I was feeling at the moment, at the time, whatever it was I was going through, being able to jot that down, being able to write that down, and it was something that was just between me and the pages. You know what I mean? Nobody else knew what had to be going on. Nobody else needed to know the intimate part of me during that time. So I was able to write it down, and it was just so therapeutic for me. So I think that's an amazing idea to not only have the tips and the trades to get through your grieving, but to also have something where you can jot down how you're feeling to better, relieve you of the burden of having to carry that around.
Exactly. So I consider myself I express myself better in written communication. Like I hate public speaking. I hate talking on the phone. I hate FaceTiming. I hate having face-to-face conversations with people.
Really?
But I can express yes. Yes. I know it's so ironic that I have a podcast because that's literally what I do.
What you do, yeah.
Yeah. And being a counselor, and I taught before too. So that's public speaking every day. So for my introverted soul, it was a lot, but I'm much better at communicating via writing. No matter what it is, like I'm gonna text it before I call it.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. And that's honestly how the name of the podcast came to be. Obviously, people just call it the Grief Journal, but its government name is the Grief Journal, the unwritten pages of my grief journey, because I felt like I was misunderstood and I communicate better in writing. And so what I'm doing in each episode is like, I'm basically kind of telling you what it is, like what I've been going through in a quote unquote journal, essentially.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love the concept. I really do love
Yes.
the concept of how everything flows with one another. So let's
Hmm.
backtrack a little bit. Now,
Sure.
you're a counselor for children, or you work
Yes.
as a school counselor. Now,
Hmm.
are you a grief counselor, or do you just do all roles of counseling?
So as of right now, it's just school, just in the school setting, whatever the students need,
Mm-hmm.
academic needs, social emotional needs. I was at a high school this past year, so it's like career and college needs. But I did look into getting a grief certificate to add on to my master's degree, just because at some point the podcast is going to go away. I'm not going to pull it from the streaming sites, but I do see myself like not doing a podcast anymore and then just
Hey, that
figure, yeah,
sucks.
yeah. I know whenever people tell me that, they're just like, no, but I'm just like, I'm gonna do a
Yeah.
happy episode still. And so I think in a topic such as this, I think this is where I differ than other podcast hosts. Um, since it's on such a sensitive topic,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have more tangible resources for that. So it has to expand past being a podcast.
I
So I'm
agree with
hoping,
that.
yep.
I
So I
agree with
have
that.
to figure out how can I develop a ministry slash business around
Mm.
this. I want to be more educated other than my own experience. Experience is the best teacher, but just to have that educational background, so that way I could further connect with the grieving process. Because if I'm reading
Mm-hmm.
a textbook, I could be like, oh yeah, I felt this, and then I can relay that education to somebody else. So whether that's me being I don't know if I could be a grief counselor though.
Uh,
It might just be something where I just go and just speak on the topic of grief in
it's a good
various
idea
ways,
too.
and yeah, and then put out more books and connect people to resources and things like that. So
That's awesome. That's a good idea.
yeah, so a long-winded answer, yes. That's
That's a good idea. So, not only with your podcast do you speak about your own grief, how you
hmm.
got past it, what you're currently going through,
Hmm.
to kind of get people past their situations or just
Hmm.
kind of give them a little bit of encouragement, but you also have guests that
Yes,
come on the show as well. So, do you pick your topics for your guests to discuss? Do they
yes.
also speak about grief? How do you do that?
Oh, this is my favorite question. Okay. So what I had done when I was first creating the grief journal, I had actually wrote out my topics in the
Hmm.
order in which I had experienced them myself. And
Uh-huh.
so what I had done in the past, up until a year ago, I was just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna talk on such and such a topic. Who would like to join me? And then people would comment or they would like the status, and then I would pinpoint those people and I would say, hey, you know what? I saw that you did this, 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 and this. Or
Yeah.
comment on my status, like, how do you feel about being on my podcast? And they're just like, oh my gosh, yes. And then they would just dive into their grief story. I'm like,
Yes.
perfect. All right, let's go ahead and set up a meeting and we'll go from there. I've had people talk about their experience with grief therapy, the shoulda,
Hmm.
coulda, wouldas of grief, dating while grieving. I had someone that had created a portrait of my mother,
Wow.
and I had him come and talk about how him doing remembrance pieces kind of impacts them in a way. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah, I
That's
interviewed.
amazing.
Yeah, so it's like no bounds. Talk to life insurance agents, funeral home directors,
Yeah.
and then I took it to another level where I had people actually talk about like their experience in grief in ways that I hadn't experienced it. So I had people come on talking about what it's like to lose a father, educators that
Hmm.
have lost students, um, people, two mothers that had lost their children due to suicide. And then I flipped it in the
Wow.
same episode and had my friend come and talk about what is it like to lose a mother. So you get that dual perspective.
Hmm.
And then this past season, I had people come in and talk about different forms of grief, talking about the grief of closing a business, different relationships, going on to new adventures, like grieving your former self in a sense.
Yeah.
So with that new season, we're actively recruiting people, saying like, hey, I noticed that you went through this kind of grief. What do you think about
Yeah.
talking about this? So I feel like my recruitment methods are still the same ish. I've not gotten a no. I've gotten
Good.
before.
That's
Yeah.
real good.
Yes. I've gotten ghosted before, but I've never
Me
gotten
too. Me too. Yeah, me
I've
too.
never gotten a no.
A
And so
few
that makes
times.
me feel, yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean, a simple no would do. But
It
I
would
think,
do just fine.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think with those though, like with the yeses that I have gotten, it makes me feel good that I've created a platform that people
Hmm.
feel comfortable in sharing their experiences and want to share their experiences. Even though they're a little nervous coming into it, I'm just like, it's okay, but I'm gonna press this button, they'll record. And they just
Right, right.
and they just go and just share their stories and do an amazing job. But I feel so honored to have each guest on there because they don't have to do that. They
Yeah.
don't have to. It takes a lot to be vulnerable, especially about the death of a loved one. But
Uh-huh.
the fact that they're so willing to do that with me means so much to me.
That's awesome. Miss Taylor, you are so dope.
Thank you.
Because to have something that's so sensitive of a topic as
Hmm.
grief and to see what you've done with it, to make
Hmm.
it okay to be discussed, you know what I
Yes.
mean? To make it okay to be talked about, for people to be in a place of vulnerability, to be able to
Hmm.
open up about grief that they are either currently suffering or
Hmm.
have suffered from, haven't gotten over yet,
Yes.
are
Yeah.
still going through it.
Hmm.
Because it was a young lady that I had on the podcast who lost her husband, and I was
Hmm.
asking her a question of how long does it take to grieve?
Hmm.
And it was a question that she really disliked, not because of the question, but because of the question that's asked of, how
Hmm.
long.
Hmm.
And she was, just saying that grief should not have a pause button or a stop button or a length of how long you grieve. She said
Hmm.
grieving is something that is, to her long term. And she
Yeah.
said that only because of the person or thing that it might be, and not because you're still focusing on it, but there's
Hmm.
something that may trigger you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? There's a memory you may think about.
Hmm.
There's, a voice you may hear that reminds you of the person. You know what I mean? And she
Hmm.
said it's one of those type of things that it always comes back. She said what the trick is to find things that keep your mind occupied, or to
Hmm.
find things that distract you, or to
Hmm.
find things that, will let you be in the moment but not stay in the moment.
Hmm.
I said that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense because grieving is a hard thing.
Hmm.
It's a very, very hard thing. And grieving is not just pertaining to someone dying.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It pertains to a lot of stuff. And I'm so glad that your episodes and your seasons focus on more than just death,
Hmm.
but they
Yeah.
focus on the loss of other things.
Yes. And it was a long time coming too because I was just in my zone, like getting out these episodes about just
Uh-huh.
going through the grief process of death of a loved one. And people were just like, well, I never hear you talk about like the death of going through a divorce or a death of other things
Yeah.
other than grief. And at first I was just like, that is not my calling. What are you talking about? Like, why would you bring that to the table? I was just
Yeah.
like, this is about death. But it took some time and some
Uh-huh.
convincing, and I am glad that I did it because you do want to be more as accessible as you can on a
Right.
platform like this. And so I'm glad that I'm able to touch on many different forms of grief to make it more relatable to
Yes.
everybody. And so when that time comes when they do lose that loved one that's near and dear and close to them, they could always go back to the previous seasons and watch and listen to those.
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
absolutely can. So you have something called Journey to 30.
Yes.
Let me know what that is. Because
Yes.
I'm intrigued. I would like to
Yeah.
know.
Yes. So I just turned 29 last month.
Oh, happy
Yes.
belated birthday.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. And so I'm grieving going into my 30s. Let's just be
Are you? Listen,
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you.
Woo.
When 30 come, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a
Mhm.
wrap.
Mhm.
And it's a wrap in a good way because you really begin to live in your 30s. I
Yeah,
promise you.
really.
I decreed and declared when I turned 30 that they were going to be the best days of my life. And so
Wow.
far they have not disappointed. And I'll be 35 on Tuesday.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, and they have not disappointed at all.
Wow.
I have had some of the best times of my life in my 30s. So
Wow.
listen, don't be scared.
Whew.
Don't be scared because you're really going to enjoy yourself in your 30s. I promise you that.
Wow.
You are really going to begin to live in your 30s.
That's good. See, that makes me feel better.
Yes. Come
Because
on, 30.
yes, that makes me feel better because I would stay making fun of people that were
I did
I,
the same thing until I turned 30 and I was like, you know what? It's not so funny. Not so funny
yeah,
anymore.
exactly. Because I was saying things like, "Oh, did your bones crack? I see a little gray in your hair." I was,
Going
I
in on the people.
Ria's going in like, did you file for retirement yet? Because it looks like you about that time. But
Yes.
I just say it's just my way of embracing that new decade.
Yeah.
Just wanting to break old habits, and enjoying and really just enjoying my life to the fullest, more so than I had been in my 20s. So I was like, I want to be more intentional about my physical health, want to break more of my emotional bad habits, want to start
Yeah.
advocating for myself more, not saying yes to every single thing, but then also
Right.
being honest about what do you really want to do, not only with your life but just like in small decisions,
Yeah.
because I'm the type of person, I don't like to rock the boat. I tend to people please, and learning why that's not the best approach in
Hmm.
a lot of situations.
Yeah.
Like I said, similar to my grief journey, just being intentional and doing what makes me happy. We got big plans for the 30th celebration.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm super excited for you.
Yes.
Super
Thank
excited
you.
for you. You are going to really enjoy your 30s. And I love the word intentional because I
Mhm.
feel like when it's intentional, it's on purpose.
Yes.
You know what I mean? This is something I'm
Yes.
doing on purpose. And
Mhm.
if you have not, this will be a good topic as well.
Mhm.
Grieving a new decade or
Yeah.
grieving going to a new age. Because there's so many things that go through your mind
Mhm.
when you leave one decade and go to the next. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? There's so many things that play in your mind. I'm not where I want to be. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I haven't accomplished as much as I want to. Here I
Mhm.
am, 35. I haven't
Mhm.
had any kids yet. You know what I mean? Type of thing. So
Yeah.
it would be, a really good topic if you
I
have not
like.
already to definitely,
Yeah.
have someone come on and just talk about that. Different
Yes.
age group. You know what I mean? You got people that are leaving their 20s going into their 30s. You got people that are hitting big milestones like 50. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Oh my God, I'd be 50. Like,
Yes. Like,
whoa, what am I gonna do at 50? So
right.
yeah, because it can be very intimidating, it can be very scary, especially when you let your mind play on it.
Mhm.
When you sit and ponder and think about where you are not and not
Mhm.
where you have come and where you can go, in
Yes.
that new age group. But listen, when I turned 30, I decreed and declared that thing was
Mhm.
gonna be the best years of my life, and it has not disappointed
I'm definitely
at
taking
all.
notes. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely taking notes on that because I'm gonna need that. Because there is a lot of grief for me going into 30. Not
Hmm.
because of the fact of the loss that I had, just because I'm like, dang, I'm getting old. Like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we brought out that birthday cake and I saw 29 on there. Oh Lord. Oh, I was just
Did
like,
something to you. Yeah.
oh, I'm really, really getting old. And in some cases, depending on who you ask and looking
Hmm.
at societal standards, like I'm not where I should be
Yeah.
in terms of marriage, kids, having a house. But then I was just like, I mean, I don't want to. Some of the things I do want
Yeah.
to, I'm just like now, like you're
Scale it
right.
back, son.
Like
Yeah.
what, like we do want the husband,
Exactly.
we do want the family and all the things, but I don't know if I necessarily want a house. A house is a lot of work. I don't
I'm
feel like
telling
doing
you,
that.
a lot of
So
responsibility.
yeah, and I'm like, I'm pushing that age, but for me, it's about being willing and like wanting to do the things.
Yeah.
So, and
That
if I
part.
don't want to do it, I'm not going to do
I
it.
just
Just
don't want to do it.
right,
Yeah.
in spite of what
Yeah.
society says. Like, oh, I mean, that's cool.
Absolutely.
I've been to Disney World twice. I keep bringing it up, but I love it. And I've been kid
No,
free.
keep bringing it up because I want to go.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I will tell. I have no shame in telling every parent go kid free.
Ah,
For the times where
yeah.
I'm like, I don't have any kids, like whatever, I'm gonna go to Disney World. I'm gonna go kid free because I'm able to go to the
Yeah.
park so much faster and enjoy it.
Right.
I'm not catering to anybody's meltdowns. I'm hearing the
And it's
meltdowns.
cheaper.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it is
Yes.
cheaper. So just enjoying what I don't have, even though society says I should have had it at the point, enjoying what my life is, even though I'm not necessarily fitting into the quote unquote mold.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so the last thing I want to discuss, because this is super dope,
Hmm.
you are a finalist.
Yes.
A finalist. You hear
Yes.
me? Period.
Yes.
Finalist for the Kansas City People's Choice Awards for
Whew.
Best Podcast. Sis, that is amazing.
It
You hear
is.
me? That is
Yes.
amazing to embark on a journey that you didn't expect to go that far or that you
Yes.
didn't think anybody would, you know, listen to or enjoy or
Hmm.
want to hear, and for you to make it, for you to just do it anyway,
Hmm.
just because
Yeah.
it was on your heart to do it. Just
Yes.
because it was gonna bless someone, you did it anyway, and because of your obedience, this is super huge.
Yes.
So
Yes.
number one, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
super, super dope. To
Thank
be a
you.
finalist for Best Podcast is super, super dope. How does that feel?
Oh, I feel like it hasn't hit me fully yet. Now I just have to go into
Hmm.
the story, like the journey to how we even got here, because it
Yeah.
was a wild one. I wasn't going to nominate myself because I'm just like, I felt like there are things that I wanted to do in regards to the podcast,
Uh-huh.
really make it stick out. Because if I'm of the mindset like this: if I'm gonna win it, I'm gonna win it, and I'm gonna like
Period.
really stick it to you, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna really like put some umph in it and have you shaken in the boots? And I felt
Okay.
like I hadn't gotten there yet because I was like, well, I haven't like, yeah, I had the books out, but I haven't done the events like I wanted to do. I didn't do conferences. I didn't
Yeah.
do this. And so, but the Lord was just like, no, put like, have people nominate you. And so I was like, okay. And so I did, and I made it on the nomination ballot. I was like, wow, that's really huge.
Yeah.
People really rock with me. So I was like, okay, cool.
Right. It feels good.
Yes, semi-finalists. Trying to remember if it was I think I was at work when I found out, and I was like, "Oh gosh," just like crying in my office, like, "Oh, I made it to the
Yeah.
semi-finalists."
That's tight.
Then yes, and I'm just like, and I told myself I'm one that compares himself to other people often, so I was like, I can't look at other people's pages to see all the love that they're giving because that's just not
Yeah.
that's not what you need to be doing.
Right.
So kept pushing it out, and it was the day they were supposed to find out if we were finalists or not. And it was the Friday after my birthday, and I'm just like, ooh, what a great birthday present, but then what a sad one
Yes.
if I don't get it. And I scrolled and I kept scrolling. I freaked out because I couldn't see it, but then like that list is long.
It
Um,
is. It's very
it's
long.
it's very long, and it took me a couple of weeks to figure out that it was actually alphabetized. The categories were alphabetized, and I didn't know
Uh-huh.
until that day. And so I saw my name on the list. I'm like, oh, what? Like, we made it.
Right. Right.
It's an honor. And of course, obviously you want to win, but I had to really remind myself, and somebody else had to tell me, like, if anything else, this is exposure
Yeah.
for your
It
brand.
is.
Because I'm noticing that people, ever since I dropped the link, people have been playing the episodes. And so um whether they vote or had voted or not, like that name the Grief Journal is unique in itself to where like you would want to check it out,
Absolutely.
especially if you are going through grief and loss. So if anything, it's exposure. So I'm gonna keep telling myself that.
Which is good too.
Yeah, which is, oh yeah, 110%. Because that's really what it's about. It's like giving people the resources, and so
Yes.
obviously you need to be put out there by any means necessary in order to be a grief resource to people. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you got my vote.
there you go. Oh, thank you.
I put that in there.
Yes,
Put that in there. Got my
yes.
vote. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
super, super excited for you because that's super, super dope. It is a really good feeling to be able to be recognized. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you don't think you're doing enough, or when you
Yes.
don't think, or when you think you should be doing more.
Mm-hmm.
And for people to be able to recognize you just where you are, it's an
Mm-hmm.
amazing feeling.
Yes, it
It
is.
really is an amazing feeling.
It is. As I remember the times I was talking about this on Instagram the other day. I was like, I remember when this was just an idea. I remember when
Mm-hmm.
people weren't playing the episodes and when they weren't sharing the flyers. And I remember
Yeah.
looking at the plays on the episode and like seeing how low they were. And I'm just like, what the heck? This is quality. Like I remember the days when I would cry because it
Yeah.
wasn't doing what I needed to do. I remember the days when I wanted to give up. I remember telling my branding manager, I was like, you know what? No, like I'm ready to delete all these pages. I'm done. And I did.
Yeah.
And I still have those days where I'm just like, forget this. I forget the Grief Journal.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
not giving the respect that it deserves. But I think
Yeah.
that was the boost that I needed to tell myself to keep going. And I'm gonna keep going until I'm ready to stop.
Absolutely. You better. You better keep going because you got people
Yes,
like me who still want to hear it. And there's
yes,
so much more about grief that needs to be talked about and that
exactly.
needs to be shared. So, sis, before I let you go, you got to give us the plug one more again
For sure.
about where to find your book and the notebook.
For sure. Yes. Okay. So you can go
And let the
to,
people see it so they can know what they're looking for.
for sure. So don't be confused. Like, yes, these are two different books. They look the exact same. So you could go to Amazon and type in "Not Your Average Grief Journal." And then the first one that'll pop up will be the book itself. But if you scroll like a couple pages down, or like a couple little ways down, like you'll see the workbook as well. So you'll find both of those on Amazon. Definitely make sure that you buy both, because they're definitely impactful once you use them together. Like I said earlier, if you use them separately, it's totally fine. But to get the full effect, definitely make sure you type in Not Your Average Grief Journal in Amazon. Buy the first one that pops up, scroll a little bit, buy the second one that pops up, and you're golden at that point.
Absolutely. So, ma'am, last question. What is the future of the grief journal?
Oh yes. Ooh, gosh. So
What do you have in store? Where are you wanting to take this?
for sure. I just did a raffle for Father's Day.
Okay.
That was my first time doing that. So that was a fun experience. So I'll definitely be doing more raffles. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also looking to hold a course, like a
Ooh.
4-week workshop / course talking about advocacy throughout the grieving season. Because what I find is that people are just obligated to invite you to places
Mm-hmm.
in the holiday season because they feel like you might be lonely during the holiday season, which might be true, but you don't have to be obligated to accept their invitation.
Correct.
So we're going to talk about that. I'm looking to host Father's Day events, because there's plenty of events for Mother's Day. And that's great and dandy. I've not participated in any of those myself. I'm just not ready for that yet. But
Mm-hmm.
I do notice that there's a lack of celebration for the fathers, and in turn, there's a lack of celebration or acknowledgement of the grief people are feeling, for Father's Day season. If anything,
Yeah.
it's the anger of not having their father present because they chose not to be in their lives, but never so much for those that their fathers are deceased. So I'm looking to
Yeah.
an event for that. Um, Eventually flipping this into a business somehow.
Okay.
That's I'm kind of working out the details of that, but that's what I'm looking forward to so far in the next 12 months with this brand.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm super, super excited about where the grief journal is going. I
Mhm.
can't wait to participate in the events that you have. I just want to be there.
Yes,
I just
come
want to be there.
on. Yes, come and have
I
a
just want to
seat.
be there because it's gonna be super, super dope. And I love to hear people's stories.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I love to hear people tap into a place that is unfamiliar and to
Yes.
be able to share and be vulnerable in front of people and
Mhm.
hear people's stories. 'Cause I'll be in there crying and snotting with you.
Yeah, yes,
Okay?
yes. And it is like
I'll be
perfectly.
in there. Let me get the tissue. Let me get the tissue.
Here you
Yeah.
go, babe. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be in there with the people. But I'm
Yeah.
super, super excited about where the grief journal is going. Please let the people know where they can hear you, where they can listen to your episodes.
Absolutely. So I am on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, not Google. I'm on Anchor,
Uh-huh.
YouTube, and then I just put it on Amazon Music.
Okay.
So that's 5 different places. And I'm excited. That my favorite part was putting it on Amazon Music. So I'm like, oh, that's good. Oh
That
my
part.
gosh. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but I'm like, yeah, Amazon is where it needs to be. And Audible too, the audiobook platform, put that on there as well.
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Listen, Miss Tae'Lor, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to come and hang with me at the lounge. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day just to talk about grieving, tips and the trades and how to get past it and opening up about your own story because I know that wasn't easy and it still isn't easy, but to be able to take, um a vulnerable place and something that you experience personally to help someone else, that's amazing.
Well, it's such an honor to be on this podcast. I know when we talked, I was always talking about, oh, I'm so excited, but you don't understand.
Yes.
I have been wanting to do this for so long, and to be able to hop on your platform, like, yes,
Yes.
I am excited for it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you accepting the invitation to be on the podcast. This will not be the first or last time I invite you on here. Please
Yes,
believe me. Okay?
yes.
When I tell you.
Oh,
Because I got some things I'm working on for the podcast, some panels and things like that. So I'll be needing to use your expertise on grief.
oh, yes, definitely. Who would definitely let me know? And
Yes,
it's an
ma'am.
automatic yes. You don't even have to ask me. Just tell me the day, and I'll be like, yep, yep.
Yeah. So when I put the calendar on, put Taylor on there, she got it. She
Right,
good.
like
Just let her know the
it's an
date.
automatic yes. I will move
Yes.
whatever just to be on
Yes.
it.
She got the date. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
thank you so much, ma'am. If you have not, please make sure you take a listen to the Grief Journal.
Mhm.
It is on all those platforms that Miss Tae'Lor has listed. You can also get her book and notebook on Amazon. Be
Mm-hmm.
sure to go purchase that, and I promise you it will bless your life. If
Yes.
you are not, you need to be following the Queen's Lounge podcast on
Yes.
Facebook.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on all that.
All
And
of it.
also, you will be able to hear the latest episode, which drops today with Miss Tae'Lor on all streaming platforms. So, wherever you listen to your podcast, you are there to listen to the Queen's Lounge.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely. Miss Tae'Lor, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you so much.
You
Oh,
are
such a
so
pleasure.
welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will talk to you soon, ma'am.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Alrighty, bye bye.